Not long ago, I embarked on a road trip from the tip of Africa in Cape Town to Kampala on the shores of Lake Victoria. After 8 days, I found I had driven 6,800 kilometers. Mind you, I don't even love driving. Our continent is a vast, beautiful, and mesmerizing place. From the Karoo landscape in South Africa, which to the naked eye might seem like a barren land, yet on a closer look, it's teeming with life. No wonder it's declared as one of the few global biodiversity hotspots, because the flora found in this landscape is found nowhere else on the globe. To the vast savanna landscapes in East Africa, that once again is teeming with biodiversity. Indeed, we are blessed as a continent. And as I arrived closer to the shores of Lake Victoria, I was mesmerized by the artisanal fishermen as they came to shore from overnight fishing. Were not only beautiful, but also full of resources on this continent. Yet, on this trip, I also saw the heartbreaking story of Africa. The young girl who was carrying firewood on her head when she should be in school, or the single mother who was toiling in the field trying to burn charcoal to make ends meet. I met teachers who hadn't been paid for months on end. The challenges that we face as a continent are indeed enormous. And all of these challenges will be expounded by the impact of climate change. You see, even though Africa is not responsible for climate change, we are warming faster than the rest of the world. Across the continent, we're seeing crops are failing, persistent droughts. We all know what happened in Cape Town a few years ago when the city nearly ran out of water. The challenges we face are enormous. According to the African Development Bank, Africa requires between 15 and $17 billion per annum to adapt to the impact of climate change. Unfortunately, we're nowhere near reaching that goal. The recent climate change negotiations, dubbed COP26 in Glasgow, was a clear indication of the lack of ambition in trying to meet the need for taking decisive climate action. What that tells me is that Africa, we're on our own. We're going to have to depend on our ingenuity, on our resilience, and on our social capital to be able to adapt to the debilitating impact of climate change. Having realized that, a few years ago, myself and a couple of our colleagues, we convened some of the most respected thought leaders on the continent, ranging from Senegal to Nigeria, Namibia, Kenya, and of course, South Africa. And we asked the question, what would it take to build a well-being economy in Africa? An economy that's human-centered, an economy that recognizes that we live in a resource-constrained world, an economy that is bottom-up, because after all we know, trickle-down economics doesn't work. After deliberating for several months, we all agreed that business as usual can no longer suffice. Africa cannot rely on an economic model that has brought us the suffering that we're experiencing as we speak. We also agreed that there are two fundamental issues that the continent needs to address if we are to be able to build a much more sustainable economic model that will transform our people. And one of those key issues is energy access. You see, across the continent, only 40% have access to energy, and I mean electricity. And of those 40%, a significant number are regarded as energy poor. Closer home in South Africa, 80% of South Africa's population is connected to the national grid, but a whopping 47% is regarded as energy poor. Why? Because they spend a chunk amount of their household income on electricity. Over the years, some progress has been made in ensuring that off-grid energy is brought to those poor households that don't have access to the grid. Many countries in Africa, a lot of solar systems have been deployed, and many Africans are actually having access to lighting. Unfortunately, little progress has been achieved in ensuring productive energy use. You see, if Africa is going to be able to develop, we need every person to be participating in the production and consumption of goods. That means we need energy, electricity that can power those tools, that those communities on the ground can be able to produce those goods and services. They can be able to irrigate those crops and so on. Otherwise, we'll never be able to transform. A second critical issue that needs to be addressed is innovation in our food system. You see, Africa loses between 30 to 40% of our fresh produce, and I mean dairy, vegetables, and fruits, to post-harvest loss. An amount of food that could essentially feed 300 million people is lost because of poor handling techniques. Yet simple innovations, such as solar dryers, what you see on your picture there, that dehydrates produce, can prolong shelf life of crops from a few days to weeks to months. Not only ensuring food security at the household level, but ensuring that poverty is alleviated and we're able to build resilience against climate change. These innovations often cost as little as $150 US. And you ask yourself, why isn't every smallholder farmer on this continent having access to these innovations? It's a big challenge that we have to overcome. You might wonder how all of these come together. I think there are three critical issues that need to be addressed if we're to ensure that inclusive innovations get mainstreamed and those vulnerable communities have access to those innovations. One of those issues is access to capital. Without money, we won't be able to do anything. We need impact investors to be on the ground to channel this capital where it's required most. And oftentimes, the rewards are quite high, even if you're chasing profits. In addition to social capital and environmental capital that can be gained. The second issue is we need to develop a network of intermediary institutions that are on the ground, that are scouting these pockets of excellence and ensuring that these innovations can be embedded and eventually build resilience at that level. Thirdly, and I think probably most importantly, is the need for collaboration. You see, collective action is extremely critical to these issues. Because if you look at an issue like climate change, it's a wicked problem. You can never solve it in isolation. We need collaboration. We need financiers to come on board. We need to collaborate with innovators. We need them to collaborate with regulators and so on, ensuring that we can build the resilience that is required. Just to demonstrate to you how all of these come together, I would like to tell you the story of Nonhlanhla. I met Nonhlanhla a few years ago on our program called the New Economy Accelerator. Nonhlanhla had a life-threatening diagnosis. She's from Durban in South Africa. Out of desperation, Nonhlanhla decided that she wanted to adopt backyard gardening so that she could grow food for her needs, obviously. Quickly, she realized that she not only have limited space in her backyard, but her vegetables were getting eaten by rodents and her neighbor's chicken. So out of nowhere, she decided what would happen if she actually used recycled plastic mounted on a wooden frame to grow her vegetables. And that set Nonhlanhla on an odyssey. Today, as I speak, Nonhlanhla is one of the most decorated smallholder farmers in KwaZulu-Natal. She's working with 200 women cooperatives, creating hundreds of jobs in her region. A clear demonstration that, given an opportunity, we're able to rise to the occasion. When I met Nonhlanhla, all she needed was a little bit of tweaking on her business model, connections in the food sector, and the working capital to make her thrive. And as I speak now, Nonhlanhla's well-being, as you can see in the picture, she's thriving. A clear demonstration that all she needed was that little jack to make her move on. In conclusion, I would like to say this, that Africa, we're full of resources. We have all the resources that we need to thrive. All we need to do is to tap into the ingenuity of our people, our resilience, and social capital. But more importantly, to tap into our demographic dividend of a young continent. And with that, we'll be able to overcome any challenges that is thrown at us. There's no doubt that Africa is the next investment destination. I'm on a journey to building a well-being economy in Africa. Please join me.